Well, good afternoon or good morning, everyone. Let everybody get settled in here virtually before we officially get started. I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your schedules to join us. We've got a little bit smaller room today, but I'm sure our audience will grow as we proceed. So Parker, please disable the waiting room if you're able to, or I can do that. Make sure that we don't leave anybody in virtual waiting room land. Again, I want to just welcome everyone to another installment of our behavioral health series here at the National American Indian Alaskan Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center. My name is Steve Steiny. I am one of the managers here at our center. We are located at the University of Iowa, the College of Public Health, on the behavioral health floor, fourth floor there at the college. I normally am broadcasting from campus, but today I am attending a conference here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I'm coming to you live from my hotel room on the 10th floor here in the beautiful city of Minneapolis. Really happy to have all of you here, and it's nice to see our audience growing a bit. I've got a fantastic speaker and presenter today. Teresa Sue Brill is here with us. She is going to be sharing a lot of information about Indigenous diet changes, and then also taking a look at a brief look at the history leading up to how that impacts the Native culture today. So really looking forward to this. I'm going to go through a few brief slides with all of you. Those of you that have been attending some of our sessions sort of know this is how we start things. And then I'm going to turn the floor over to Teresa. I also have Parker Laney here. He's a colleague of mine at the center. He'll be assisting with slide advancement today, as well as any technical difficulties that may arise as you are viewing the broadcast today. If you are having some difficulties, please reach out in the chat to Parker, and he will try and troubleshoot for you. So with that, I want to just get started. I want to again welcome everyone. Please sit back and enjoy the next hour or so. We're scheduled to go till 1:30 Central. I know Teresa and I talked yesterday about being able to reserve a little time at the end to take questions and comments. Feel free to utilize the chat box or the hand raise feature during her presentation, and we'll try and circle back to you. Or if you feel like you really want to share, just raise your hand, and you can go ahead and unmute, and maybe Teresa can take your question directly as we're going. So again, great to see everyone. Parker, you've got the slides there, the first slide. As all of you know, this event is brought to you by the National American Indian Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center, which is located at the University of Iowa, as I mentioned earlier. We are part of a larger national network made up of 10 regional centers, a national Hispanic and Latino center, as well as a HTC network coordinating office located at the University of Missouri. Again, I know most of you know this, but our project, our center is supported and funded by SAMHSA. And I just have a disclaimer. I want to remind you all that the content is developed by the presenter, and the opinions expressed today do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of SAMHSA, HHS, or the American Indian Alaska Native HTC. Following today's event, we will be sending out a follow-up email, which will include links to the recording of today's presentation, Teresa's usually pretty good about sharing her slides in PDF form. She'll have a lot of resources that you'll be getting to hear about today. So it would be good to have this information for your future reference. We're also going to offer 1.5 NADAC approved CEUs. You can take this certificate to your certifying or licensing body, and hopefully they will accept that and include that in your CEU accruals. Lastly, there'll be a link to a short survey. Please take a few moments to fill this survey out. Parker and I will post a link to this survey as well in the chat box today if you'd like to just do that survey before or at the end of today's broadcast. If not, we'll reach out to you and you'll have another opportunity to complete that short survey. Survey is voluntary. It's just really important that we hear back from you, and it's a great way for us to show our funders that we continue to provide events and initiatives and webinars like this. You can skip any questions you want on that questionnaire, and none of the information can be linked to you personally in any way. If you have any questions about that survey, reach out to Parker or myself here at the center, and we're happy to take your questions. Okay, next slide. I know we're gathered here virtually today, but before we begin, we wanted to take the time to acknowledge the land and pay respect to the Indigenous nations whose homelands were forcibly taken and inhabited. Please take a moment to read this land acknowledgement, which was created by 3 members of our team, Ella and Keely Driscoll and Mr. Sean Bear. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the final intro slide. Without further ado, I want to introduce my colleague and my friend, Teresa Sue Brill. She has a vast background and extensive knowledge in traditional Indigenous ways. She will talk more about this. She also has a lot of experience in different behavioral health fields and has worked extensively with Indigenous populations for most of her adult life. I'm really honored and happy to have gotten to know her over these last few years and really look forward to hearing her presentation today. I know you'll all really enjoy the information that she's going to share, and hopefully you can apply that in your own life and practice and the work that you do. So with that, I've said enough. I'm going to we're going to transition and get Teresa's slide deck up. And I'm going to turn it over to Teresa now so she can tell you a little bit more about where she comes from and who she is. So thank you.
Steve, I just sent you a text, by the way. Miigwech, everybody, for being here. I am really excited about this topic because I think it's something so important. I hope that I'm able to do justice to it. I hope that it sparks all of your educated minds and hearts and spirits, that you're able to bring more to it in your own ways to your communities. I have personal experience in it, of course. I've had it with myself, my children, from physical health to we've seen spiritual issues where food is medicine. And I've done this with other folks, even with bodybuilding. I've done it, strength training. I've used food as medicine and budgeting. So I've felt this on every level, from being in the city to the woods, you name it, resources and how to make do and make it work, to going to reserves that are next to third world countries and finding ways that we can do this. if we can jump into it. We only have 90 minutes and I want to give time to open up the floor. So enough about me. I'm going to let the background do the speaking for me. So here's some of the points we'll be jumping on today. And hope to cover with you. And if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. Any stories that are attached to it that support it, feel free to jump in as well. Next slide. Here is, and I have all the resources in here, the links, and at the bottom of the slide deck, it's got in the references, so you can find this for yourself. I do this on purpose. I know that you can utilize this in your grants, program creation, reaching out to departments around you. If you have this to support it, you can use this. So when we look at the history of it, as a people, many tribes, if not all, from my experience, so many, I don't know them all, but everyone that I know, our worlds revolved around food. And it wasn't just survival. And when you think about a powwow was a celebration. That's what it's supposed to be. We celebrated the season, we celebrated the harvest, we celebrated marriages, we celebrated coming together and getting to see each other again as clans or sister and brother tribes. And that also was with food. We didn't get to play games until we went out and got our food. As hunting, fishing, gathering. Games was a part of training. But we needed that food, that sustenance. We needed that health, that medicine. So the first thing that they did, of course, when they rounded us up, is they took away a lot of our abilities, took away rights to, and this is a part of ceremony for us, this reconnection. In these images, it kind of tells you for itself what it is and what was going on there. They changed from the buffalo, from the deer, from the fish to giving us beef and things like pork. So we see in our Indian tacos, we see the hamburger now. We see in our corn soup is used with lye instead of the wood ash, which is another medicine element. And we're also seeing pork fat in it. And all of these things are impacting us physiologically, but neurologically, so psychologically as well. As a people, we always dealt with things as a whole. We looked at the whole being, the whole situation. Anytime you went for medicine, it came in as salve, tea, food. So these are also very important things that we needed to assess to look at what was going on with that person and their needs. Excuse me. So here in this picture, which I think is so important to me and interesting, somebody captured in this bottom middle picture here and had wrote about it in the article, their observations. And this was back when they were doing the initial, what we call commodities today, but the soldier fort rations. And what they observed was the spirit of the people. So that's the mental health. And they were coming down. They were down. Their energy was down. And this is because they didn't get to have those foods, reconnect with the land, connect with that spirit, but it was also physically bringing them down. And they had noted that in this photo when they documented this. Can we jump onto the next slide? So I think that is so interesting that they noted the beginning of the changes of our overall mental. The disparities and impacts, again, you guys have access to these slides. I hope you'll go through it and do all the reading because I put so much information in there for you to have, but we don't have enough time to go over it all. So we're going to just get on points. The poor nutrition led to poor health and worsened quality of life. These forced changes undoubtedly left many psychological scars on the adults who saw their entire way of life change. So when we think about our way of life today, what are we doing with our time? What are we connecting to and with and disconnecting from? So that's also important. This disconnect from land, culture, and food is cultural connection, impacts mental and spiritual well-being. So also the chemical components of the food. So we'll jump on to the next one. Thank you, Parker. So as I was saying, our life centered on food and food as medicine. We definitely use that as medicine. When spring came, after eating so many dried out foods, you know, having bad hunts because of weather or whatever, we couldn't get out there. Gosh, we were excited to get these certain the leeks, the berries, or whatever tribe in their area that they had, because we knew how this was going to boost our energy, boost our spirits. So we're talking about the conversion of that and how that changes the chemicals and your thinking, the overall being, but also the physical health for the kind of bugs that come in the air, the sicknesses, those things bring you down as well, but the gut health, the liver health, and so on and so forth. So again, I think this one's also interesting, and I tried to put a lot of the Western clinical in there as well to back for program changing if need be for the support. But traditionally, we haven't been trained to ask about food nutrition. This psychologist, Drew Ramsey, says it, an assistant clinical professor at Columbia, but diet is potentially the most powerful intervention we have. By helping people shape their diets, we can improve their mental health and decrease the risk of psychiatric disorders. Like I said, I really hope you guys can take the time to read over these slides. We're going to jump through a lot of this. So I really like more the cultural and the what we can do, solution-based talks. So open the talk up there. So next slide. You guys can do the homework later. So here is on the left an image of I forget what tribe, I'm really sorry. I want to say it's near Oklahoma. But we, as the people, as Anishinaabe and Menominee, where I come from, same thing, we made what people call pemmican. And with the meat, we dried out the meat and we ground into it. Berries, nuts, and seeds. Berries, nuts, and seeds. And here is some modern day. This one's over in California. This one, of course, you got the nuts, corn, beans, squash, seeds in there, and that is modern day. So it doesn't mean it's gone. You hear this excuse so many from the people of tribes all over. I hear it all the time. It's gone, or I don't know what it is, or nobody's gathered it, or I don't have time. And I was a single mom, 2 disabled kids, one with brain tumor, so on and so forth, on my own for minimal budget, minimum wage, and you find a way. You prioritize. It's changing of decisions. So again, do we play games? Do we play sports? How do we do this culturally a choice? Or are we gathering and going out together? Are we choosing on the weekend, on our day off, after work, you got a couple hours span? Yes, the mosquitoes come out by 5. But what, put the stuff on. Sweetgrass oil is wonderful for that. Put on your net. It's super buggy this year. Do what you got to do, but you make a way if it's really important. Or you can support instead gas money to the individual, and that is gathering this and making that and saying what we can get, pumpkin seed, things like that. Ask them to dry it out. Go and pick up a bunch of pumpkins. You make do and you start off with what you got. Maybe you can't afford the organic pumpkins, but it sure is better than the junk food you were eating, right? So next slide. So here is just some of the traditional food principles. And again, look up your tribes or the person you're working with. Have them look it up with them and for them, help them learn how to find it and decipher, is this really theirs or is this some hogwash somebody created, you know, to find out what is real, what isn't, because there is so much stuff out there, and what applies to them, and learn to throw away if it doesn't apply to them or their gifts. And then, but yet they want it, maybe somebody it does. So I'm not good at drying out, say pumpkin, we're going to use that for an example, or the seeds, or don't have the time, but I can go get the pumpkins, and I know somebody that is got the time, this elder woman, or that lives down the road, or this youth that would love to do it. The kids would, you know, have fun doing it, and drying out the seeds, drying out the pumpkin, making, and you know, it into where you mush it down. You mush it down and make it soupy. And you can make instead pumpkin pancakes. So you're getting out the gluten flour, which is a soldier for ration. The next, of course, I put Anishinaabe in there. There's so many tribes to choose from that you can find of this out there. And this actually was like one of the first ones that popped up and it looked great. I agree with it. So with the seasons, what you can do, what you can get, what we look forward to, but also these foods is helping our bodies, just like the moon cycle does with us ladies. It is helping our bodies adjust to what's coming in that season. So sicknesses, the depressive disorder that you get in the winter and things like that, the nutrients that are in those foods that are coming with those seasons actually support your mood, your energy, and your physical health. So to be looking for that diet change, always the changes that are coming. So you're not stuck on the same, how we get stuck in a rut with our cooking and our recipes. You're not stuck in it. So you always have this exciting new, this learning, imagine, and you know, what does that do to our neurons? What is it bringing up? What is it wiring? What is that making us excited for, and things like that. So here also is the food pyramid, and we need to think about the food portions, and we'll go into that towards the end. On to the next slide, Parker. Thank you. So again, the food principles address a lot of the physical and spiritual health issues and the well-being of the land, the reconnecting. So you think about program creation, and you think about culturally, we always did things in our teachings say circle teachings, they say interconnectedness. And I always tease and I say that the creator made this earth and the teachings and the solutions as if the textbook for dummies. Not that he's seen us as dummies, but he oversimplified things, okay? So he really did. So when you look at this and you think about program creation, you think about how can we make these changes and work it out and make it happen. Well, my clients need to reconnect. So the reconnection of the land, environmental. So you're like Great Lakes and Fish and Wildlife Commission, or the local college that's doing environmental stuff. The cooperative, there's all different, even in the cities, they have like community gardens, they have all these different boys and girls clubs. They have for the elderly, or you can suggest and create programs, maybe be willing to volunteer as a part of it. But it helps to reconnect with the land, but then it also is sustaining the ecosystem. So helping to revitalize the land and bring back by doing this. So now you're pulling in that department's support, maybe some resources, some educators, or some mentors, or some supervisors that are kind of watching over the youth or the elderly, things like that. So they can have those multiple roles. And Indian country, we are no strangers to multiple roles. I think everybody I know that works in Indian country wears multiple hats. So is what it is. The canning and jarring, you can approach your commod shed and things like that, or go to a nursing home if you're in the city and ask those elderly and ask their program director, hey, could you ask your elderly if they would be up to teaching us how to do this? They can sit and just walk us through it. They don't got to get up and do the work. We'll do the labor. We'll bring in the food. We'll bring in the jars, just as a family. It doesn't have to be a whole community. And we'll come in and we'll clean up our mess, but to teach us how to can and jar, because they have that knowledge. It doesn't matter if they're native or non, they have that knowledge, I'm telling you. And so it's filled in there, and they would more than likely be willing to do this. And does that cost? No, it doesn't cost. You can offer some of your canned and jarred food. Those elderly know how to tell if it went bad. they remember. So again, as a result of declining in farming, the elders presented a noted decline in social health in their communities, drug, alcohol, domestic abuse, as well as health problems like diabetes, obesity, and that they did not see when they were younger, and everybody was involved in food production. So again, it's almost of utmost importance to get all involved, whether it's family therapy, whether it's individual, whether it's youth, whether it's criminal justice, and it's behavioral. It's important to try to get them back regrounded, and then open up dialogue. while they're out there doing it. Try to go out there and join. You would be amazed at how they're more comfortable and opening up as they're reconnecting, or while they're canning and jarring, while they're drying out, while they're cleaning the plant and processing it at the different stages, whatever is their thing they're willing to do. The next slide, Parker, thank you. So again, it's in our DNA coding. So when you think about that, we're pure and sacred beings. How long has these changes in our diets on the scale of things compared to folks been changed? And so our DNA isn't processing things as well. It receives and digests, and it resonates with us much better, either our cultural food or and drink as well. I mean, we weren't running around drinking juice back in the day. We put my people did put berries, and I have mint growing, peppermint leaves in the water. And then we ate that later as well, kind of like people do with tequila today and the worm, but instead it's the healthy version. So again, we are the opposite, the polar today. Our people, what we're drinking, what we're eating, what we're taking in, Creator really drew that where it's, no brainers. So if you're pulling on this, maybe you need that. And it's funny because in my language, the strawberry that we put in that water is called the odamin, the heartberry. So what is going on with their heart? Why they're pulling on the alcohol or the drug? So again, the correlations. And so when you think about that, it's really important. But also then when you think about our DNA and the processing or malprocessing of, that's absorption. And so then when we're having that struggle with absorption, you are thinking about the intestinal, and it's struggling all the time because you're daily eating like this. It's become normal for you. You don't know any different of feeling this way. It's like a lot of our people in a country that is only known suffrage and hasn't known functional. Our bodies is the same as well. But this impacts our spirit, our willpower, our energy, all of that, our passion. So our neuroprogramming. And so all of these things, because what is it feeding and what is it changing when it becomes that chemical element in there? And we can jump onto the next slide, Parker. Not all diets are good for Indigenous people. There has been, and I've seen it with my own eyes, and I've told this story before about the food allergy testing done on my daughters. And when we got to the lactose, when we got to the dairy, the nurse pulled me and my youngest daughter aside in the hall, closed the doors so it didn't alter the test, so my middle daughter didn't hear. And she said, I want to let you know ahead of time that if you have an intolerance to this, and she didn't have a severe allergy, she didn't break out in hives or things like that. But when I put this in, she says, they sometimes will react one of two ways, either very emotional or kind of short fuse with temper. Yeah, and so we were like, all right, so that way I don't think something's wrong with my daughter, or she's misbehaving or being mean to the nurse. So we got in there, and sure as heck, my daughter turned around and they put it in her, and within moments she was yawning, crying tears, and saying, I'm done. I just want to go home. And then she started getting really short with the nurse. She started getting short with all of us. I was like, wow, it was here. I thought I was being a good mom, giving them yogurt and making sure we had milk, and things like that. And it had this impact upon us. And our genetics, we just haven't had dairy. We'd had goat's milk and things like that, but we just didn't do dairy. And now we see that in everything. We cream our wild rice. We see cheese on our end in tacos. And but the thing is, in tacos isn't ours. The flour, the lard, all of that is part of the soldier fort rations. So we need to decolonize when we think about decolonization as well. So another program to tap into, another resource, another advocate you could reach out to help affect these changes. These food intolerances, like this says here, also affects hyperactivity, mood swings, depression, aggression, migraines, which the physiological illnesses, is, I'm sure you know, creates mental health problems. And over time, what is your body is like a computer. You develop a mental health issue. So it becomes this complex compound where they may not have had mental health. It might not have been the root issue, but it's going to take time to change that over, but we have to work on that diet. Can we jump on to the next one? Thanks, Parker. So this had, in all of these studies that I have in the resources later, it puts a number of evidence-based about mental health and also addiction, how food impacts, leads to, and all of that as well. But these are some of the main ones that we're seeing in Indian country. So I threw them up there, but there's so many that it's connected to. And so I found this very interesting. And so here it does, it plays a key role in it, even from the onset to the duration. And so I would like to ask, even for yourselves, to see the power of food. Start noticing in yourself, eating something healthy, and how did it make you feel? How did you respond to life situations? Eat something unhealthy. How did you feel? How did you respond? And give yourself, I heard a therapist say 72 hours they look back on. In our ways, 4 days until you're back to yourself. And I've noticed that 4 days for us. And notice it with your loved ones as well. Watch their attitude change. Watch their excitement at a feast when it's junk food and they walk in like, what? Watch the body language. Really observe. And observe then as that food digests what they're putting on their plate. Is it the fry bread? Is it the cream wild rice? And then watch how much time it takes until they're getting to trouble, fights are breaking out. Now go into a group where they're serving things like the berries and the healthier and the more natural, and watch how much time in the attitudes and the behaviors, and start observing all around you and notice the impact of it. On to the next slide, Parker. Thank you. So addiction and nutrition. Recent studies has shown that diet and mental health are more closely linked than we realize. The effects on the brain health. So boosting brain development, changing brain proteins and enzymes to increase neurotransmitters, increasing good gut bacteria. And it is so important. The gut is so important, what's happening here. And I have some resources in there as well that talks about treatment centers and what they noticed as well with the importance, because you have people coming in and they, from the effects of whether it's drinking, whether it's opiates, whether it's heroin, whatever it is that they've been using, the damage on the gut, the damage on the liver, the damage from not eating, the damage from grabbing quick junk foods, the damage just from the alcohol or the drug itself. And so what needs to occur, because again, the mood in all of this, how it impacts as is, just as is, but then they have these damages going on. So how is their body absorbing anything? How is their brain interpreting and responding? Trying to heal, trying to go through, why do I want to sober up? Why do I want to suffer through this pain? It's depleting their willpower, right? And then some. In our ways, we also know about that spirit. So it's opening a door for spirit to be chirping in their ear, whether they hear it auditory or not. It's just playing upon them, playing upon them, playing upon them. So we knew that we had to support the being, the individual in every capacity, the whole. So diet was important. What have you been doing to yourself? What does your body need? We're going to need to look at their diet then. What kind of health issues do you have, and food allergies as is? Look at their diet as well. And so no, you're not without, you can have this like. And when we present, your diet needs to change. Jesus, harsh. It sounds like I need to suffer more. Why do I got to go without? But when you present it as you're decolonizing and you're reconnecting, you're eating with your old ones. You're eating with what Mother Earth has blessed you with this season. And she brought this just for us. So when you present it in the love and the beauty and the support and all that it truly is, it's a whole nother story. And there's a reason for that addiction, not only the hurt, not only the suffrage, not only some of them born into, but it's that disconnect. So you're presenting that reconnection as well. But then you're presenting these healthy choices. You're presenting priorities. You're presenting a way to go about and do this at home so they can continue it on and educate their children, because it develops within the children. Food addiction, people usually think about, and in the DSM-5, it talks about food addiction, but it thinks about obesity. It thinks about anorexia. But food addiction isn't just that obese person, is what people usually think, overeating. It's also the skinny person who's eating junk food. It's that child that throws a fit when you tell them they can't go to McDonald's, or we're having a healthy dinner tonight and you're not having those chicken nuggets and pizza and chips. And, you know, and you're going to have this healthy snack instead of that. And you watch that child, this sweet baby, turn on you. So, and not be your friend anymore. And you got to play the parent card or grandma card or auntie card or uncle card. And they're mad, and they're going to want to go over to their friend's house, their cousin's house, and the game comes on, the hustle comes on. What does an addict do? Same thing. So, but the think about the neuroprogramming as you translate that, and what is it developing and leading to? So how important is it that we start this young and we start self-control? Because we're looking at the pleasure centers of the brain, and we're looking at all of these different, that's neurowiring again. So we're setting ourselves up. And that is the first thing the soldiers and the government took from us. This is what we first thing then we need to go back to. And in that way, we were talking to spirit always. We were thinking about the need. We were looking at, so the choices of in life need-based. How do we take care of ourselves? What do I need? What does that loved one need? And we learn about self-love and self-care at the same time, because we're thinking about when somebody comes over, our child is sick. Oh, you need this. Oh, here, I'll take care of you. But what about you when your energy is depleted, when you've been struck by a lot of stress, when you have suffered loss, things like that. So what is it you need? And so when we think about that, and it's in these studies, we can jump on the next slide and flip through them as I'll talk over. Thanks, Parker. Oh, got the next slide, Parker? Thank you. So here this does go on with some of the studies, and it talks about the SUDS, and it talks about the adequate nutrition, but it also talks about recovery as well. So again, like I said, there's a lot of resources in here with that. And as the resources go on, and I found one this morning again, and I didn't get to put it in there. I could give it to you in an email if you want it. And it's from the government as well. But as you read through it, and you think about any of our backgrounds, a teenager could read through it and pull out of it. You don't have to be a doctor in a specific scope to understand these studies, to understand what it's saying and the importance of it, and utilize it in your grants, utilize it to change your programming, or how you assess and things like that. But it talks about the gratification portions of the brain. It talks about the reward and pleasure and the liking and the wanting. The dopamine is what we're craving. So what are you craving? But what are you grabbing? You're grabbing bad carbs, instant energy, instant dopamine, instant high. And how are we programming our brain then? What is this leading into? That reward center. Why are we looking for these feelings of, me and my girls used to call it eating our feelings. And so, and we joke sometimes with the things they'd endure. I go, okay, we got to eat our feelings tonight. We will be bad. But the thing is, we were openly saying, not to make a joke out of it or make light of it, because that's another detachment, disconnect from truth and reality. And then we're disconnecting how we're programming our brain in a negative way. But it is acknowledging what we're doing. It is acknowledging where we're at. And then also opening up that door for discussion. Why do you need to eat your feelings today? When they come home and say, Mom, gotta eat my feelings. Why? What happened? So what's going on? So it opens that door for communication. I hope you find your own better way of doing that. That's what we did. And so Why are we seeking the dopamine? So that would tell you about what's going on with yourself, your loved one, or your clients. What is going on? What is the real need? And when you look up then, and we can all do this, what foods give us healthy dopamines or supports that? Well, then it's the B1s. A lot of any country needs the B12s or some B complex, not so severe as B12. Iron, folic acid, omega-3s, amino acids. When you look at an eating disorder, like I mentioned, how many different ways that kind of presents itself. They talk about the depression. Well, it isn't just body issues. It isn't just why are they uncomfortable with themselves and anorexic or somebody that's obese. And then it leads into other kind of health issues. But also we're looking at the changes of the chemical into the brain and how that's changing, blocking and turning into those neuroreceptors and then telling you you're hungrier. You want more, you need more. And so what, again, does this lead to? So that carb craving is also amino acids. And I don't know if you guys can see my camera. So there's always a way, there's a cheat way. If you can't get your hands on the good, healthy foods that brings amino acids, if you go to the store, because I always hear people talking about my budget, I can't afford it. Yes, but are you buying coffee at the gas station? Are you buying Red Bulls? Are you, okay, this has how many servings? So it's about $20 or less. This is a cheaper brand, the BPI, and it's amino acids with amino energy. So it's got your caffeine in it, but it usually, most of them use a green bean tea caffeine. So it's better in your central nervous system. Coffee, that kind of caffeine, actually eats away at the myelin sheath of your central nervous system. So then we're looking at over time for some individuals, if their diet is also not supported with healthy foods, and then also is under a lot of stresses, those fight or flight chemicals. They're very powerful and wonderful chemicals telling us, pay attention, we want our peace back, we need to address these issues in life. But then it's also eating at that part of your brain as those chemicals get up in there, and that's that blood-brain barrier. So we're looking at bipolar, schizophrenia, things like that. This here has how many servings in it? You only need a scoop. And I've seen grandmas use a few scoops. It lasts about 6 hours of energy. So you don't crash like coffee or Red Bull. So it's better for you. And that's a cheat. That's a cheat, because I always hear, well, I can't get my traditional, or nuts cost too much. And so when you think about, again, there's leptin for, they say, older men and the type 2 diabetes. We see a lot of that, and it reflects as depression. And so all of these things that they're talking about in the study, when you look up the foods that has these important nutrients in it, they are basically the same: fish, legumes, nuts, seeds, lentils, quinoa, asparagus, berries. And these things, our berries, is our odomin, the heart food. So what is that individual's body and system saying it needs to fix that depression, that attention deficit disorder, all of these different things that it's talking about? Even where it talks about in this study here on this slide, it is saying the same thing. It is talking about these elements is what the body is needing to help. It is in these foods. Those foods I'm mentioning is our basic cultural diets across the board, our traditional diets. So there's ways to cheat it. Once again, some areas flax is normal, some it's not. Here's flaxseed protein. And so, you can get that protein, a healthy protein, because the beef, in another study on there, talks about with that we got from the Soldier Fort rations, with that image with the buffalo skulls, the problems that causes, the mental health problems because of the kind of fat that it is and how it changes over and how it blocks those neuroreceptors. This is pumpkin seed powder. Look at that. We can make this at home. All of those kind of things. The flax, you could get, somebody who's interested, young girls, learn their flax flowers, or what is your local seed that is similar to flax seed, of the flax flower. This here is the fiddlehead ferns, and Oh my God, I wish you could smell it. And the leeks dried out, and I did it in the oven at home. I put a little sea salt in there. You know, if you can't have the salt, if you have blood pressure issues, but imagine this your snacks instead, grinding it into your food instead, but it dries out, it keeps. So these are things you can do at the Come On Shed programs. But if you look up fiddlehead ferns, you look up the leeks or ramps, and you look at the nutrient value, and you think about when they come up in the spring. So this is just an example. What we are coming out of winter, seasonal affective disorder, different other health issues that we develop over winter, what's in those nutrients and how they counter that. And then the energy producing that it actually is giving you. So it's really interesting. The dried cranberries. Well, we have a lot of cranberry marshes. You can go down there, you can get it for pretty cheap. Those are great snacks, but we also put it in our pemmican, we put it in our food, we put it in our salads. So you're getting that whole balance, but these are the things that they're saying that we need. If you want to cheat, you still have to have that weaning your balance or weaning your diet and things like that. Dark chocolate's also good for you. There's very little lactose in it. The trail mix, you know, this is about $6 and this is Walmart. Yes, it's probably not the organic one. No, it's great value. It's Walmart, but it's way better than the chips. It's way better than the Twix bar. It's way better than the Red Bull and the energy you get from it. It takes about 3 months for your palate to change. It takes 3 months steady from my experience for your palate to change. So if you can hang in there for 3 months. Can we jump onto the next slide, Parker? So you're saying, Steve. Thank you, Parker. So here's just an example. And again, I encourage that you do some looking online, because you'll find like thousands of them, and find one that applies to you a little bit better and calls to you. But this is the craving ones. Me and my daughters used that years ago. They're grown now. I'm a grandma now. But we use one like this, to eat this, not that. And so what you're craving, what your body really needs, and what to eat instead. And it's just some ideas, but it gets you going. So you can also, okay, we don't want that, we don't have that, or I don't have money for that, but what do I have in my cupboard that offers this, that is high in that I could eat? Now, I suggest that from experience, but then also physiologically, if you think about how long does it take for your body to digest and absorb the nutrients in it? Wait that long before you give in and eat that junk food that you were going for. So if it's about 20 minutes, 40 minutes for it to absorb, once it is in there in your system, you'll realize, oh, okay, I do feel a little bit better. Oh, I'm good. And so, you know, and then if you want to cheat, you're fuller now. So you're going to cheat a little bit less. And you got more of the healthy in there. So you're not going to, you know, gorge on the junk food. The high fiber as well. This is important, especially if you're dealing with addiction or you're dealing with long-term junk food eating and diet changing over. Your intestines is going to need that high fiber to repair. It also helps you to feel fuller. And so, but in these is not just the high fiber. You're looking at the amino acids, you're looking at the folic acid, you're looking at all of those things, the omega-3s in some of them that you really need, that's high in, you can get your hands on. Again, look for what's in your area, look for what's in your taste buds. There's so many other resources out there, and you don't really have to do the cup size depending on your height, weight, age, things like that. So again, look at that. Can we jump on to the next slide, Parker? So there's always a way. This is my favorite part. There is always a way. And so to start making these changes, to start affecting seed banks, I'm brain farting now. There is Smithsonian, that museum. You can apply to Smithsonian if you're not able to. The local museum, your tribal culture coordinator, people in those positions actually have the authority then to. But I've known just tribal members that are able to apply to it and receive. Go to Smithsonian. They have seed banks there, and you can request for some of your seeds that would be and get them growing. Now, Do you live in a city? This is another excuse. Do you live in tribal housing? And it is so, you do not with those dogs running around want to put a garden bed in there. I've seen it, been there, done that. So look online as city gardens, ways to do it. Tweak your wording in your search. You can take a skid, make sure the skid is not a chemically treated one, but look at your local businesses in town and ask who's got them. They're throwing them out. It doesn't have to be in a perfect shape. It could be some cracked boards. You're going to sit it up on the side, fill it with dirt, and you can have the food growing out of it. So right up against the wall, you can line the wall where the skid is and look at mold control and things like that, so you're not rotting your building and things like that. What to do with the skid, you know, things like a tarp. But there's always ways, hanging baskets. There's always ways to go about. So gathering of seeds, going out and getting them, pulling them from your pumpkin, from the food you eat, pulling them. I do it all the time, saving your apple seeds and learning you can't just grow an apple tree from one. You got to kind of mate the apples. I learned that one the hard way. The more you know nothing. So it's so eye-opening. But you save your seeds from the food you eat. Ask others to save them for you. If they don't want to keep them, you can. Roots, some of them grow from the roots, pull the roots. Ask people to share the root from their garden if they have it. Go into the woods, go into the marsh. And then on in line, there's seed exchanges as well. So you can let them know what you're looking for. Programs can do this as well. And then so creating gardens and traditional gardens. If you do not know what is yours, you're starting healthy. A lot of, I've noticed, at least for us northern tribes, a lot of the nightshade plants are not good for us, like tomatoes and stuff. We can eat it, you know. One of my daughters, her lips kind of swell up and things like that, but she can still eat it. A lot of my cousins get very ill from it and have gas problems and things like that. And you think gas, so what? But that is your intestine swelling again, and it's not absorbing the nutrients. And then what is it turning things into? And then in the brain, how is it changing your chemical and your hormonal balances? And again, how is this impacting your mental health and your behavioral health in situations and compounding and complexing situations when you're not feeling well? And we have enough that we deal with in an Indian country, and you don't need to already be feeling down just because of your food. You're going to need that clear thinking. Food preservation, as we spoke about earlier, portion control handouts. It's fun to challenge the kids, to ask them to look it up online. What did we do? How did we keep our food? And have them figure it out and do it together. Let's experiment. Let's try and make it a family project of coming together, or with your nieces, with your nephews, with your grandkids, but have them look it up, the teens look it up, and be educating you. And so they'll have fun with that, and tell them, let's make sure it's right. How do we know if it went bad? Like, we don't want to get sick. So have fun with that as well. But then they're learning how to learn and find it. They're getting hands-on. You have that coming together, and they're involved, they're engaged, so they're going to want to eat it now. And think about the stories that go with it. Who can find the story? Who, you know, and you start building this reconnection. So again, what was taken from the soldier food rations to now, this is such a decolonization, but reconnection as well, in every way that it once was, but just modern today. Portion control handouts are so important. So many people I know in Indian country, it's just textbook. I'm telling you, it's redundant. They think we need a ton of meat. We do not. We gorged on it when we had it, but we dried out what we could because we needed to make that last, because we never knew if we were going to have bad hunt, bad weather, bad whatever. And so it's, think about cows and bodybuilding. What do they eat? I did it myself. The more nuts and seeds you eat, the more vegetables you eat, the more squash you eat. Oh my goodness gracious, you are going to put on the muscle. But again, it's the whole. It's not just eating. You know, you got to get out there walking, got to get out there moving, exercising, whatever is your thing. You do your thing. Find it, enjoy it. Find a backup thing, because you're going to plateau. So again, switch like you do with the seasons. But it's important, and you're getting that fresh air, you're getting that sunshine, you're getting that dopamine. If it's an evening walk, safety, safety, safety always, but let's do it, and do it as a family, do it as couples, do it as friends, things like that. Find your mentors, role models. Who's that one in the group to get everybody going? Let's take our counseling session, our group outside. Let's go walk. Let's go to the lake. Let's whatever. But the movement is important, and bring a healthy snack with it. So the portion controls are really important to look at. Find, again, ones online that there's just some examples. I have some in there, but find which ones cater to your area or look more tribal even. You might find some so tribal specific. It's beautiful. So the educational materials and resources about the division with the diabetes, a lot of diabetics, we have so much of that. And again, if you've ever experienced diabetes, you think about what it does to your overall, how you feel. And so again, mental health, and you get tired of feeling that way, and you pull on alcohol, drugs, other kind of highs, diversions, things like that, the attitudes, the behavioral. So it's so important, but you can have pancakes, you can have pumpkin pancakes, you can have things like that. So to change your diet, but you're not without, and you're actually reconnecting, and it's so flavorful. 3 months, hang in there for 3 months, your palate changes and you will enjoy the flavor. You're gonna go, oh my God. And then try tasting a pancake after that. You're just got a flour one, and you're just gonna be like, I am so spoiled with this. I will keep my, whether it's egg and banana or pumpkin pancake or whatever it is, you're making pollen from the cattail and making pancake with the pollen, and things like that. So again, there is a lot of, just some to get you going. But I encourage you guys to have your clients or your loved ones or yourself to find ones online that really call to you better or work better for you. Individualize. We're such an individual in that ways with our people, about our spirits, our names, our gifts, our character. Is a 3 months to change taste reference included in the references? No, I didn't put that in there. I'm sorry. But I could tell you from experience, and I challenge you to see for yourself. Even if it's just with one type of thing, try changing your coffee from having creamer in it and sugar or whatever, or just creamer, to black. Even within a few weeks, it's going to change over your palate on it. And so just observe and notice, but give it a try and see for yourself. And again, educational food is medicine. And the food pyramid. So those resources are in there, and working with your food shelf or your commod shed, and youth and elder programs, as I mentioned earlier. Commod shed can actually, as part of our treaties and the government's promises, the commodities is those soldier fort rations. So they can actually choose, if enough people agree to it, go to the council, to tell the government, you know what, the cost to truck in this food and the cost to process this food and the process to can the food and bring the food, how about you just send us that money, and we will create jobs with that money and get a cheap van, and we will be going out and harvesting and creating gardens, and we would like seeds instead, and we will can and dry and process our foods here and give these people these foods. You can start out with just getting rid of the canned corn, or just getting rid of the butter, or just getting rid of and weaning like you do your cupboard, and you start switching over, because it's not in many of our budgets just to switch over, right? So start weaning and changing what you purchase and buy until your cupboard is changed over and your palate's changed over and you're working with the recipes, and give yourself patience on that. Next slide, Parker. Thank you. So here we're going to get into some of the resources. So here I kind of cut out just little parts that were really important. So many, every one of them is important, why I put it in there. They're really interesting, and they're going to help support anything you're working on, and who you're working with. But again, I hope you enjoy doing your homework. I gave you a lot. But some of this I had to pull out. It just really stood out. And again, with the hypertension, but the depression, the different brain types, again, the individualism. So catering your diet and the needs. Why are they grasping this? What is it they're really needing? So it's kind of interesting when you do the kind of line of questioning and you do that assessment. What is it they're seeking? What is it they're looking for? What is it they're really doing? And so is it because they're suffering from hurt? They're suffering from not feeling good about self, you know? So why am I doing this pleasure center area of the brain that is also related to heroin? So we can jump on to the next slide. The gut is so important. The anxiety is in that last one. So here it talks about that beef issue. And so this one's about the commodities, the sugar, the flour, the coffee, the bacon. A lot of these came in as rations from the government. And like I was saying earlier, the commod, bods, fry bread, cheese, canned meats. These things are all not cultural. And in tacos are not traditional. Creaming our wild rice is not traditional. Putting sugar in our berries is not traditional. Things like that. So when we do this, we're creating what spirit. When we would look at it spiritually, you're altering that food. When you think about alcohol being made from the death of something, and you're taking in that dead spirit, you're changing that life cycle. So it's so interesting. So that's the drink portion. But when you're thinking about the food portion and you're changing it from being healthy into unhealthy, what is that spirit now doing? Bringing in sickness. So I want you to think about when you're eating something unhealthy or an altered, whether it's bread, fried bread, whatever, the lard, the fat, we didn't really be frying our foods like this. We had a type of bread and we put seeds, we put pollen, and all these are nutrient rich. All of these are so, and healing. And so that's what we put in it. And it was kind of put in near the fire. And so the way it was cooked, some tribes on a rock, a heated rock, things like that. And you think about the minerals in the type of rock they selected. Be careful of what rock you're selecting. Some you don't want to cook on, but the minerals that are coming up into it. So as well. So when you think about how this changes and all of this and is changing into the brain, there's a doctor, I'll find it in the next one of the next slides, but Andrew Huberman, and he is from, I believe, Stanford in California, a professor there. And so there's some videos that he talks and he is telling you what it is changing into. He is telling you what it's doing to the neuroreceptors. And he is talking about the depression and the anxiety and the overall behavioral health issues and addiction as well. So I thought it is through studies he's done. So it's really informative, and again, backs, because then you go to Andrew Huberman's on Stanford's website, and you can get access to his studies, to those results, right? And you can also email him and request them if you need it for your grants, need it for program change. Then we can jump on to the next slide again. So this one, the compelling evidence one, this top one, again, it is all is supporting, but it's talking about the stress, the depression, and chronic stressors. And this is the prebiotics, probiotics. So again, it's really important because what are we dealing with in an Indian country? Where are we coming from? What are we juggling? What is our background? What is our loved ones juggling? There's lateral violence. There's outside systemic racism. There's bullying at the schools. What is your kid dealing with? You may be doing well, but how does it hit you? You know, so all of these stressors, all of these affect these chemicals, our bodies, so we need food as medicine. Our elders would give us, we would make things when you had the flu, but it also, because when you think about what it does to your body when you have the flu, things like a mild fish soup, like white fish soup, and that broth first, and then you take in the food. We don't jump up pounding it in there, you know, because it would do more damage to our system. And the bone marrow broth of the deer meat, the moose meat, things like that, it increases the appetite, but it also is helping the digestion. It is soothing and coating and healing the stomach and the stomach lining and the intestines. It is a good amino acid. So what is it doing for the brain? It's overall calming. So how that manifests in changes in the chemistry in our system. And then what is that doing then to our neural wiring and what portion of the brain we're going to think and feel about things and process our situation. So what we need for healing, and then we can take in that diet, that meal, so how to help if you are going through such stressors and you think of it for another, you have a favorite elder and they're just experienced all of this. The community comes to them because they're traditional and they're stressed out from the injustices. What do you get up and do? You get up and make them what tea, you get up and make them what soup, and you're taking care of them in what way. And then you bring in them a meal a little bit later, and you're just naturally doing this, at least in our cultural ways. And how is this overall healing them? By the time they leave, they are uplifted, feeling better, full of piss and vinegar, ready to go get them, and they're amazing. So this is what we need to do for ourselves as well. It's just hard because when those chemicals are flooding us, where are we at? So what do we grab for? Those quick carbs again. So what happens when our clients are doing this? What is going on? So we can get to these root issues and look at what we can help them to utilize to clear that brain up and think a little clearer. Dementia is so high in Indian country. So again, the eat this, not that. The vitamin deficiency in dementia. And then this is, of course, the fungal. We have so much black mold in Indian country, and that does create or mimic mental health disorders as well, and physical health that creates that feeling, right? How you're thinking, how you're perceiving. And so that can create the mental health as well and behavioral. Can we jump onto the next slide? Thank you, Parker. The copper, we use copper pots a lot, but when you think about what copper does and that element, so if you can get your hands on one in a thrift store, just as it comes, in your budget, I've found them at rummage sales, thrift stores, and they were just a little bit too much. And then I seen where somebody was dang near giving it away. I felt like I was stealing. I was just like, oh my God, really? And so let it come to you as you can afford it. We cannot be living outside our means. We have become so colonized in a way. We want stability so bad, and we are determining our stability as what it looks like. And we need this brand name clothes. We need this TV this size. We need, to be watching this show. We need to be rocking to this music. We need to X, Y, Z. And so again, what is it you really need? And it's need-based and prioritizing. And this is something that our people have become so disconnected from, because when you're in survival mode, you're like a deer shot. You're just on that go, and you're going with what you know. And when all the world around you is telling you what. So this one again, so there's, like I said, there's going to be a ton of resources. There's I think 7 or 8 resource slides full. NIH.gov has I put quite a few of their resources in there. So I know that'll help support your grants or program changing or how you're looking at assessing. And I also encourage that, since you'll see, find some studies that apply more directly, and I guarantee you'll find them, it's out there, to what you're working on or trying to achieve, or your need-based there. You're going to find them, but this will help get you going there. And you know how it is when you search something in your search bar, things start popping up. So it'll come up. It'll come up in spirit time. Just put it out there to spirit that you're needing this, looking for that. Can we jump on to the next slide, Parker? That digestive system and your intestines is so important, and the damage from addiction or just a kid eating junk food for so long. And I thought my kids, I was feeding them healthy, 100% juice, it said on the bottle. Read the labels, it is not. And so the chicken nuggets, they were not all chicken, and how much corn is in everything. And we really didn't have, we had hominy corn, and how we processed it again, it's so different. I know in Bad River, there is one family that remembers how to process corn the traditional way. I have been bugging to get in there. And, the people that have those teachings, those last teachings, aren't always like your picture perfect. traditional person with their life choices. So know that, put up your healthy boundaries and go in and get what you need and carry that teaching in that good way, carry it on in that good way. So again, here's a lot with mood and memory, more neuroscience research about like your emotions, but again, it's going to go into the diet stuff for you and the importance of it. Thyroid problems is a huge thing in Indian country. They did years ago, we found out, I was in my late 20s and I had some elders come to me when I was living in Redcliffe, and they were from different reserves, same tribe, and they had found in the rafters in the basement in Bad River these old documents from the United States government with the White House stamp on it. And they came over to me and showed them to me, and they said, look what it says. And they were called goiter pills, or they were told it was a multivitamin, and they were given them. They remember them. I also found later in the inner city, a lot of the Black communities receive these as well, and the poor, what they considered poor white farming communities, they remember receiving them when we were working on the Pinocchio Hills mine. Those people would now be in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. I vaguely remember receiving one in kindergarten and first grade, and I am in my mid to late 40s. And so these goiter or multivitamin pills, what that paper, that document said from the United States government with the White House stamp on it, with the old type print, was that it was actually small dosages of radiation, and they were looking to see what the long-term effects were. One of the long-term effects we found out, and I had met with when I was in my mid-20s, a girl down in Arizona on the Honda Reserve, Apache, and she was my age at the time, and she said her parents talked about it and her grandparents, so I know they received it down there as well. And these they found caused thyroid disease. So we have high rates of thyroid disease in Indian country. My middle daughter has it very severe, and so again, when we're looking at the thyroid problems, how does that look at mental health, but the importance of the diet needs and changes overall. So if we can jump onto the next slide, Parker. So again, as we're looking at, I'm going to try to see it. Again, here, this one is medical.net, the effects of diet on mental health. So again, they're known to produce and increase anxiety, hunger, irritability. So when you're thinking about our folks in Indian country, you're thinking about commodities. You can get food stamps, food share, whatever your state calls it, versus commodities. And then you can pick and choose. Instead of getting that white rice, you can get red rice, brown rice, until you can afford a bag of wild rice, and you start learning your portions and your body starts adjusting. It is healthier. Instead of getting that white potato, get the red potato, and start learning the differential. Rinse to get some of that bad starch off. If you can get cattails, southern parts of the states, I hear they're almost extinct. Up here, they're choking things out right now. So you can take the bulb from the cattail. You can take inner bark from the birch. You can take it from some pines, at least for us up here, but learn for your area. And this is things we made into flour. They're high in carb, in a starch. And what you can do to get some of that starch out, but there's an energy food again, and it's a healthier one. It's more nutritious based, and it's nicer to your intestines, the gut health. So when we're looking at that and we're dealing with our daily lives in Indian country, or even just being a friend, look at our statistics. There is no way you are escaping hearing injustice, abuse, dysfunction, and it isn't impacting you in some kind of way, or you're working in that field. And so again, you're going to be experiencing a lot of these things, and how are you responding to it? How could you have better responded to it? So it's really important to look at that diet and what we can do to support ourselves, because it is changing and altering. And if we can jump onto the next slide. So again, the metabolism, when research is observed, this one I thought was really important. Again, with the fatty acids, you can see where I was talking about earlier. They are listing what it is needed. This is some research done on it. and this is Biomed. And so it's talking about the Western diet, it is talking about mental disorders, and it is talking about the differential with the omega-3 fatty acids and what you can find that on. It's not just the fish, but when you think about what all of it's in our nuts and our seeds. And I hope you remind Indian country that does not mean snacking on a bag of salted sunflower nuts with the shell on and spitting them out everywhere. You're not getting the real serving, guys. Quit playing. And so, I love my people, so but the instant gratification, we got to play. So where are we at? And so again, it talks about the neurowiring and the neurotransmissions. So all of that. So why we're doing that. And so, again, so the healthy and what you're looking at, your vegetables. And what we really did have, we dried a lot of our veggies and berries, and that's what we had when we didn't have fresh. So getting back to decolonizing, there we go. Can we jump on to the next slide? And now that certain protein relating to depression, that one's cow and pork, and the fatty ones, just saying, so if you could get that deer meat, or you can get the good fats, the good oils is what that would be, from your nuts and your seeds and stuff like that as well, if you don't get deer meat and fish or moose meat or whatever a lot. So this is the last resource slide. And again, there's that Huberman lab. There's a video with him talking about it, that Andrew, I think Huberman from Stanford, and he is translating it for you. So you then want to look him up on Stanford. I believe, if you go on his YouTube page, you can click his, Stanford page and get to those studies, get to the resources that you need, that has the statistics, has the evidence base. And then NAMI, of course, Eating for Better Mental Health. This one's about an hour, if I remember, video of a doctor on there talking about behavioral health, addiction, all of these impacts of food and changing over. She talks about a client coming in that really didn't have depression or anxiety, and all of a sudden had it really bad. And what happened is she moved and her diet changed drastically. And so she assessed that and then changed the diet, and she was alleviated of the depression and the anxiety. That takes time. Again, our bodies are like computers. So if it had this strong moment, next year around that time, we may be feeling it again. It's our body kind of needs to release it. So what do? We do the right thing now. We reprogram ourselves. So we're taking ourselves back. We're reprogramming ourselves. Our palates are created, as a baby, you're fed what you're fed. And so as an adult, you can retrain your palate. Quick story before we open it up for talking in. My dad, right before he passed, he wasn't supposed to go to the Western door. He was warned years ago, but he knew he could help heal this autistic girl. So he left Ontario and went to Oregon. And he did. He got her, but that's another story. Anyways, he was also working with the Umatilla, I think it's called, people over there, Umatilla. And he had this youth group there, a bunch of teens, and they were all bringing in, when they come to meet, their little bags of chips and their pops and stuff like that. And he looked at them all and just sat there quiet. And they finally were looking like, what is going on? What are we doing today? And he said, all right, you guys, I want you to imagine there's a test tube on this table. And if we put the chemicals, read what's in that bag, those chemicals, this one, and what's in that pop, and you put all those chemicals in the test tube, is it going to start bubbling over and eating away at the table when those chemicals are coming together? What's going to happen? And the kids were going and they're thinking about it. And he said, your body is those test tubes. Don't jump now after you eat that. Anyway, the kids got it, but they came right back in the next time and had their pop and their chips, because food addiction is real. And so They could get it, but you're going to have to, really feel the differential and experience the differential. So sometimes choices need to be made for you. And that's what the soldiers did. When they changed our diet, they made choices for us. So sometimes we have to make choices for the people because they're in a place where they can't make these choices for themselves. They're just not able right now. They're unstable. And so we change the diet of what we offer at the treatment center. We change what the Kamad Shed's offering. We change what we offer at home. We change what we bring to the ceremony. We change what we bring as that dish to pass. So, we're then changing the choices at that point. And then the feeling is different. The presence is different. And we want good innately. We want to feel better. Our body yells it for us. So it will change. Anybody, any questions? Or we can there's one more slide after this, I think, and that one's just the citing those sources on the earlier slides. So if you want to read up about those pictures or that history or need that, it's in there. Otherwise, we can take the slides down and just open up the camera. And if anybody has anything they want to ask or share. What type of cooking oil do I recommend? I recommend you find out what your tribe use and use in your area if you can. I mean, like whatever is more natural and best, do that. The flavor, when you think about like, say calcium, and you take calcium, maybe we have a lot of osteoporosis or osteopenia and things like that, a lot of joint problems in Indian country. And so when you think about the calcium, you can sit there and take it and go, why isn't it? It has a friend. Everything is in our teachings, like the coming together, male, female, night, day, all of that has a friend, and that's magnesium. So if you take magnesium first, your body can absorb the calcium better. Same thing with iron. If you take vitamin C, your body can absorb that vitamins or that iron better. So it needs its buddy. And Steve. And so when you think about with your food you're cooking, to try to learn what goes with it. And Creator spoiled us. Our Creator, we have the same Creator, created the earth. He created us all across the globe. He loves us all, and he spoiled the heck out of us. Wait till your taste palette changes and you realize the flavor of things and how it makes you feel. You'll realize how much he really thought of us, or she, great spirit being. And so to say use fish oil, say use bear oil, depending on your clan, save that bone marrow, and you can freeze it when you make that broth and you cook it down, and you can freeze that and you can use that as well. But what are you cooking it with? Are you cooking this with meat? Are you cooking it with eggs? Are you cooking it with vegetables? And so the flavor that goes with it, we're spoiled. Know you're spoiled. Know you are loved and thought of. So think about what'll taste good. You can do taste. And so when you think about that, usually what elements are in it is going to support the elements of what you're eating and help your body to really take in all of those nutrients and digest it better, because some vegetables make you gassy even though they're good for you. So it might counter that, right? A cheat off the start, I find this little container of coconut oil at the dollar store. It is probably not organic, but it is so much better than bacon grease that you keep that jar on the stove, right? It's so much better than corn oil. So I like the coconut oil. Try cooking your eggs in that. Oh my God, it tastes good. So there's one if you're a good starter and it's cheap. And until you can afford better, because you'll notice as you're eating healthier, you're not going to be needing as much groceries. Your body isn't going to be crying for more food, more nutrients to heal itself, more energy because it's depleted of energy. And it's not going to be the addiction portion of your brain saying, give me more, more, more. So you're not going to be bringing as much. I hear about budget, but how much is a bag of chips? Come on, folks, versus what you can buy to make a snack at home with your family that's healthier. We used black beans and made brownies with that, and you couldn't taste the difference. And it was actually, you weren't weighed down after, you can eat more of it. So you can tweak the recipes. Molasses is good for you unless you're diabetic. So again, the diabetics, be careful. Yes, excess use of coconut oil. It is. So again, in moderation, I'm not putting a ton in my pan. So it is just enough to coat it. So again, moderation. Thank you for that, Jean Miigwech. And that is so important. And I would also use that if you're weaning your diet and you still are eating your toast, your bread, try rye bread instead. As you're weaning over and coming out of it, try lettuce for making a sandwich instead. If you have to have a sandwich, there's things that you can do instead. If you can eat the nightshade and tomato slices, and that's your bread, things like that. But I've had coconut oil put, I've had molasses put on my toast, and the rye bread is better because getting that rye seed, if it's a seeded in you, which is also another, get some rye seeds going. You can grind them, you can grind it down to a powder, and it's another form of flour. You mix them all together, your pollens, your root ones, your bark ones, all these flours together, and the ones that are more starchy, they're going to help be a binding agent. So tweak and learn together to make these recipes. We're bringing it back. That's our job as 7 generations. So don't expect yourself to know or each other to know. You're going to figure it out together and make fun with it. Laugh if it messes up. Have fun with it. So anybody else? Any questions? Any comments?
Do you have any experience trying to approach, I guess I would say, a tribe as a whole to changing their culture to this kind of food rather than, because there's traditional.
Yeah.
Like if I say traditional, I'm thinking, you have
Yes.
more knowledge in it, but what you're thinking, what people caught, what people gathered, that's right. Whole foods is essentially. And other people, when you say traditional, they're thinking of fry bread and Spam, depending on where your tribe is. And then now you have what is actually traditional for the kids now, which is, sorry to name drop, but like Doritos and,
Yeah.
Sugar,
And
basically.
And that's how you'll see how real food addiction is and how prevalent is it, because you'll hear excuses. You're going to hear all kinds of things because they want to hold on to the known. And that's also part of being in that survival mode and dysfunctional. But going to the different individuals, and then we have a lot of lateral violence. So you have this back stuff going on in their history that you're walking into. Even if you're from the community and you're trying to affect change, so to be ready for that, not take personal, but what the elders always did is they tried to find who is on board, find like minds, they called them coffee clutches, And so you're going to find maybe your historical preservation officer, what really was cultural, and here's the history of your soldier forts coming in and changing the rations. Find the youth who might be interested in doing community garden, but let's do a cultural based one, like the Three Sisters, I'm brain farting, but companion gardening. And so that's basically what that is, companion gardening. And there was so much beyond Three Sisters. We had traditional potatoes, all the things we need to get back that is so gone that we don't think of. Those nut seeds is the kind of things that we're needing. The commod shed might be interested in at least doing parts of it. So in steps, implementing that change. Can we do canning and jarring here? Drying out, we're going to grow a bunch of pumpkins and dry out and process. And we're going to do the seeds over here and then dry out the inners of the pumpkin and learn together. Can we use the skin, or can we, because some squashes, you can eat the skin, is the best part. What can we do with that? And things like that. You chop it up, grind it up, and put it into, and then having a recipe cook off, make it a challenge, trying to decolonize, but what would it taste like, so you can put these kind of challenges out there as well, and then maybe host a feast event, at those health fairs and so they can have the little taste servings. Make sure they put what's in there in case the person has food allergies, diabetes, yada, yada.
Oh, yeah.
But there is just let your mind run with who might be interested, who might have the knowledge, who might have the access to requests like the seeds from the Smithsonian. And then you can always approach the council as well. Watch for issues and topics coming up. When they're talking about different issues and topics, your biologist in the area, if you have like the BIA office near you, they're plant biologists, and they want to do mining or oil or things like that. Okay, have the BIA's plant biologist go and document what is a sacred plant over there, but food is medicine, right? And why you need to preserve that area because it might be becoming extinct. It might be a state protected plant. So how to get those different departments involved, but then, and to come together. And so it's kind of a trend. It's kind of in steps how it goes. Find the ones who the people listen to on topics, whether water is sacred, who is that one in the community, and approach them and see if they can get the trend out there, and get on board. And then they would probably know some of the other people who, to reach out to. That might be an elder from the community that everybody listens to when this elder speaks up. So, it might be that. So, it depends on the community, the different kind of what you're looking at. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's just, I think in this community, it's a little tricky to find. Like the elders here are not. They're the ones who hand out the candy bars and the Doritos. So I do. I have to say too. Like I have looked at food as being addictive, and the science and all of that. But I love the way you just word it as, but whatever the scientists say. But if you're looking to come back around so that you can say, oh, but I have to have the Dorito or the sugar or whatever it is. Yeah, you might whether it's technically an addiction or not, you're acting like an addict.
Yes.
So yeah.
And that is definitely our neuroprogramming. And so it is enhancing that portion of the brain and losing self-control in our kind of choices. And how does that reflect and manifest in our other behavioral and in our life aspects, but then set us up? All it takes is a bad situation to ourselves or our loved ones. Mm-hmm. And this is now how our brain's wired. So which direction are they more than likely going to run into? With it. So, but also knowing that our elders always observed that about each other, about the people. And so we knew more than likely so-and-so is going to head this way. They might test and nudge them to try to teach and get that lesson in and re-center them is, rebalance, reconnect. But that would translate as your neurowiring, reprogramming them, getting them to observe and realize motivational interviewing, that technique.
Thank you.
We are just past the bottom of the hour. I want to just again thank everyone for joining us and sticking with us for this past 90 minutes. So much information. Believe me, Teresa could just keep going. She could. You got to believe me on this. I've known her long enough to know this. But she's just a wealth of knowledge, and we're really thrilled to have her on as part of our consultation team and advisory council here at our center. So thank you so much, Teresa, for sharing this little, just scratching the surface on this topic. There's so many different facets and aspects to this related to the culture and to behavioral health. So thank you again. Look for us next month. We're going to have another behavioral health webinar. It's always the third Wednesday of each month. So look for us in July. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay connected. If you have some ideas for us about topics or things you'd like to see us feature, I put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out and we can look some of those suggestions over, and we'd be happy to consider that. So thank you again, everyone. Parker, thanks for helping us out. And
thank you, Parker.
So long from Minneapolis. Take care, everybody.